About this. Have you ever had a situation where they're running with a player like, hey man, I told you some stuff, or you said this about me, or I heard what you said. Have you ever had a run in with a player like that over your years?
One time, Griffey Jr.
From the EQC studio, welcome to the Top Step with Rowland-Smith.
How we going, mates? Welcome back to another episode of the Top Step. We're inside the EQC studio, and we are getting ready for the second half of Mariners Baseball 2024. How's it been for you? I know for me, I've said this many times, it's felt kind of agonizing, right? They're still clinging to a one-run lead in the AL West. They've got the Houston Astros coming to the series, and it's pretty significant due to the tiebreaker. If the Mariners win one game in this series, they secure the tiebreaker, which could be significant. Both these teams, the first half, have been, I'm not going to say underperforming. I know the Astros got off to a rough start, but they are surging. But it could be significant. You just never know how this plays out at the end of the season. So we have a great episode for you. Before we do, make sure you go to YouTube at the Top Step TV. Go subscribe. Got so much good extra content over there. Got plenty of good shorts too, by the way. The short videos over at YouTube. We also have all the full-length interviews for all my guests, including the guest I've got today. That is the voice of the Mariners, Rizzs. He's coming up right after the break. But let's dive into what we've seen in the first half from the Seattle Mariners. And I'm curious, how do you feel about it? I said this in the first episode. I talked about if they were to get 95 wins, that would secure the AL West. It may not take 95 wins thanks to the Texas Rangers, the Houston Astros dropping off a little bit. The Mariners, as we sit here going into the second half, they are on a pace for 86 wins. I still feel like, I know the Texas Rangers and the Astros have dipped a little bit in this first half, but they're surging. It's going to take more than 86 wins. And if you go back to that first episode, I brought up three things. Number one, the rotation, one of the best in baseball, but the X factor is going to be Bryan Woo. And I feel like he's been dominant when he's been on the mound, but it's about him being on the mound. He's dealt with some elbow stuff, a hamstring issue more recently. That was one thing, man. He's looked so good, but I want to see him. You want to see him consistently every fifth day, especially once you get to August and September. That is for sure. Another thing was, can these guys stay healthy? I'm talking about Mitch Haniger, Mitch Garver in particular, or Jorge Polanco. They've just simply underperformed. They really have. And I feel like that hasn't been the biggest contributor to the pace they're on, talking about the mid-80s win mark. I feel like the biggest factor, though, was the third thing I brought up. If you go back to that first episode, you can go rewatch it. It is Julio Rodriguez, and that takes us to our top trends. These numbers are brought to you by ilovebaseball.org. Go to ilovebaseball.org. You can pay $37 a month, and that helps out dramatically when it comes to young Dominican ball players. You can go read and see all the good things they're doing over there. But I want to show you this. Julio Rodriguez, the power has been down. He's got 8 hits in his last at-bats leading into the break, the much-needed break. He's now batting .556, 15 for 27, with 6 extra base hits, including 3 home runs and 7 runs in his last 8 games. That is significant. He's improved his season batting average by 23 points over that span, gone from 244 to 267. I know it's been a tough first half for Julio Rodriguez, especially in the power numbers. I talked about this multiple times on this show. You glance up and you see the numbers only hovering around the 10 in home runs, and you start to press just a little bit. But this is significant. The last factor I said in that the 3 things we needed to get the 95 wins was Julio. And I said to him, I said about Julio, if you get 100 RBIs, 30 home runs, he's got a lot of catching up to do. But is it in the tank? Absolutely. This is a great sign leading into this break. I think the break is going to serve him very well. I feel like he's going to maybe seek out some different voices here to figure out how he can go about getting on a big second half run. I'm telling you, if you get that same 6-week stretch we saw out of Julio like we did last August, good things are going to happen. But, man, it's going to take more than 86 wins. That's for sure. You just need the internal options. I know we're going to talk about trades here in a couple of weeks. The internal options, if you get a couple guys, Polanco start to hit a little bit, even Robles, I like what I see from him just recently. You get Julio starting to do just like those numbers we pulled up in a little bit more consistent basis, and you've got the starting pitching, you're going to be okay. Push you well above 90 wins for a big second half. All right, mates, we've got a great show for you coming up. One of my favorites to work with, that's the voice of the Mariners, Rick Rizzs. He's joining me coming up right here on the Top Step.
Welcome to Tacoma. We sit in the shadow of no one, except, well, Tahoma. It's who we are. We like to get loud, and we're all about the thrill of going for it. We just put on our game face and play. So get ready for whatever the next adventure holds. From the big shout, to the big payout, to the big night out. We're here for it. Emerald Queen Casino, the entertainment capital of the Northwest.
All right, please welcome to the Top Step. We have the voice of the Seattle Mariners. That's Rick Rizzs. Rick, how we going, mate?
I'm doing fine, Ryan. How are you, buddy? Just enjoyed our all-star break and now ready to get back to work. It's going to be a fun second half.
You ready to get back to work? Are these breaks for you? You've been doing this for so long. Are they too quick, or do you feel like they're too long? You're just dying to get back and get after it.
No, it goes by too quick, you know. As you know, you've been in baseball forever. It's my 50th year, 8 years of the minor leagues, 42 of the big leagues. You go for so long. It's really not the exact half point. It's the unofficial half point, so we're beyond 81 games. Yeah. It could just go by so quickly. All of a sudden, you get a chance to recharge your batteries, as do the players. It's much as a mental break as it is a physical break for these guys and for us. And all of a sudden, you turn around, the 4 days are over, you get back to work. But you can't wait to get back to work because it's an exciting year. Get ready to take on the Astros tonight. The Mariners are still in first place, so it goes by very quickly for me.
Yeah, we will get to the Mariners in just a second. But, Rick, I've got to say, and I've told many people this, and people who you've run into, you've touched a lot of people in the Mariners community, and obviously in the national community too. It's amazing, man. I'm spending more time on the East Coast, and they all say, oh, yeah, Rick Rizzs. Yeah, I saw him at this event. I saw him 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I feel like I'm like, is there anyone Rick hasn't met? But there is no one, and I've told many people this, there is no one who loves this job, this amazing job we get to do. And it is an absolute blast. I'm so fortunate. But there's no one who loves this job more than you, Rick. I'm telling you right now, man. No chance.
Well, Ryan, I grew up with the game of baseball. You saw the movies, The Sandlot, right, with the kids?
Yes. I just watched it with a bunch of 13-year-olds, 13-year-old Aussies just a couple of weeks ago. Some of them hadn't seen it. I'm like, you kidding me?
Really?
Yeah, but yeah, great movie.
But that's the story of my life. You know, as a kid growing up on the south side of Chicago, we were so lucky to have this open field behind our home. And my block, Carpenter Street, had 20 homes on one side, 20 homes on the other throughout our community, you know, on the south side there. And we took our shovels and our push lawnmowers, and we made our own Wrigley Field in Comiskey Park back there. And that's where I grew up loving the game of baseball. And when we chose sides, we also chose who we were as players. I was always Louis Aparicio. If somebody else wanted to be Louis, we had a problem. But we also had the dog. Remember the movie Sandlot, Hercules? The big, ferocious dog who's always steal the baseballs and put them away and everything. They made him look to be like a monster, but he was really a cream puff at the end of the movie. We had Mo the German Shepherd, and his backyard was by third base, Ryan. And every time our ball went in the backyard, it was my job to jump over the fence, get the ball, throw it back onto the sandlot, jump over the fence, keep playing. That was the only baseball we had. So I did it every time, except one time I got the ball through in the sandlot, and Mo got me right on my backside. I was just going over the fence. I got up off my backside. But that was the story of my life. You know, grow up playing the game of baseball, you know, with my buddies in that sandlot. I loved it.
Hey, listen, Rick, I want to get to this team. First of all, it's been, from my point of view, and you know, you're always a glass half full guy, but the first half, as crazy as it's been exciting, but it's been agonizing at times. There's been moments where you look at this team and go, man, you know the potential with some of these hitters offensively. Obviously, the pitching staff's amazing. But looking back, people ask me all the time, what is it offensively that with this team that you can see from this first half and going into the second half, if you could change, say, 2 or 3 things that could make a tiny difference, or just little tweaks that could make, a huge difference to this second half, what would they be with this offense?
Well, I think, one thing they have to do is, number one, cut down on the strikeouts, and that's obvious. And that was the goal at spring training. They were going to cut down the strikeouts, get more walks, but they really got to do a much better job of just putting the ball in play. I was watching Albert Pujols on the home run derby before the home run derby last night. He said, man, I hated a strikeout. Even if I put the ball in play, at least I was doing my job and something good can happen. You might get a base hit or somebody can, make an error. But they just have to do a much better job of hitting the ball up the middle and hitting the ball the other way, cutting down their swings with 2 strikes and making adjustments. The hitting coaches are a heck of a lot smarter than I am. These guys, they know how to hit. It's just a matter of them figuring out and getting it done because the pitching is so good. Here they are with the worst average in the American League, but the pitching is so good. They're still in first place, going into tonight's game against the Astros with a 1-game lead. But over in Anaheim, the last 3 games, they lost 3 games in a row, each by 1 run. The other day, they had the bases loaded twice, 2 guys on one time, and they just couldn't get just a base hit to try to win that ball game. So right now, they just have to figure out how to put the ball in play, shorten their. So I always talk with Edgar Martinez, who was the best at that. He was the best hitter I've ever seen, Junior, the best player that I've ever seen. So I think when they do that, and they can do it, Julio being Julio and the other guys in the lineup, just doing what they're capable of doing, getting those big base hits, it's going to be a really good and exciting second half of the season.
Yeah, you're around these guys so much, from plane rides, hotel elevators, on the field, and you have a great relationship. I want to talk about that with these players because I've seen it firsthand. Do you feel like, because people ask me all the time, like, what is it? To me, you mentioned the strikeouts coming into this season. You have new players coming in, and they're aware of it, right? Like, from being a former player, you're aware of, like, some of the things that you want to fix from the year prior. I feel like it's a big-time psychological battle that I feel like, you go in the month of April, and they had a rough little, couple weeks to kick off the season. Then they started getting into gear, but you feel like some of these players, and like I said, you're around them way more than I am, but do you get that sense that sometimes it plays on their mind a little bit because you have new guys come in to a team or a situation where it's like, hey, we can't strike out so much, and it just snowballs in the head as opposed to anything physically, like in regards to physical talent?
Yeah, I think eventually it wears down, and, in April, it got off to a slow start, offensively. A couple of guys were hitting. Josh Rojas, I think, has had a heck of a year, and he got off to a really good start, with the bat, but there were just so many guys in the lineup that weren't hitting. I mean, I'd figure out my, lineup card here in my book right here, and 8 guys or 7 guys were hitting under 200 in the early part of the year.
Yeah.
So I think it just wears on you mentally. Cal Raleigh, I just love this kid. He is so good at what he does. He's going to be an all-star for many years to come. I think he said it best a couple of days ago. It has been frustrating offensively because they know they can do it. We saw glimpses of Julio, toward the end of the first half of the season. He said it's got to come from us inside that clubhouse. It's up to us to get the big base hit. We have to be accountable. And I'd love to hear stuff like that. And all those guys are trying. They're trying really hard to get things turned around. The pitchers have not complained one bit. I mean, when Felix was here, remember all those great games, Ryan, that he had 8 innings, 1 run or less, never said a word about the lack of offense. Mariners just can't score any runs for Logan Gilbert. Otherwise, he'd have about 7 or 8 more wins on the season. He just goes out there and does his job. He pitches like crazy. So do the other guys in the rotation. We'll talk about the pitching. But it's got to be frustrating for these guys because they can do it. And it's just a matter of going out there and putting the ball in play.
Who is the guy in the clubhouse you've had some of the most in-depth, best chats with over the years? A former Mariner that you had, you're just like, man, conversations with this guy would just top the charts every time.
Yeah, Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah.
I love talking with Junior, and he used to yank my chain all the time. When I'd say, hey, he'd be sitting in, I called it his throne. He had this black leather lounge chair, massaging chair in front of his locker, and I'd go, hey, Junior, can I do a pregame show with him? I'm not talking to you. I'm not. And then he'd always talk to me. He'd always. Right. So after I put up with this for years, Ryan, I said, hey, Junior, how about a pregame show? And I'm not, Junior? I said, I'm going in a dugout. I'll meet you in 5 minutes. And he would show up in 2 minutes. He was like, what do you want to talk about? But he opened up one time right before he left the ball club, and we had a long, long conversation, and I won't repeat it, but he really opened up his heart and his soul. It was Ken Griffey Jr., the person. And there are things that Lou Piniella told me that I couldn't use on the air. I said, Lou, maybe Sparky Anderson, too. When he ripped one of the writers when I was with the Detroit Tigers, I said, Sparky, you really want to go with this interview? He said, yeah, I do, because one of the columnists said something that wasn't too flattering. So anyway, I'm not kidding you, about 10 minutes before I went there on the air, we were in Baltimore, the phone rings up in the radio booth, and it's Sparky. Right. I go, Spark, what do you want? He said, Ricky, can you run down here? I want to redo the interview. Nice. I said, you son of a gun. So I ran down, how far it is from the booth to the clubhouse.
Right,
and I ran down there. We redid the interview. He said the right thing. And I said, you okay, Sparky? He said, right. Man, I bolted. We got that thing just on the, and it was a cassette tape back then,
Right.
I couldn't send it like I do now to Gary Hill. But,
yeah, did you tape over the original, or did you just continue on? You just kind of kept the original on your own?
I think I taped right after it.
That's what. Oh, I gotcha. So, but that's why. But hey, Rick, that's you talk about you gaining the trust, like Trent Thornton asking, "Hey, look, am I good to talk about this?" Have you ever had a situation where they're running with a player like, "Hey, man, I told you some stuff," or "You said this about me," or I heard what you said. Have you ever had a run-in with a player like that over your years?
One time, Ken Griffey Jr.
No way.
Because I said, he made all those great catches, Ryan. You were on the mound, and he made all these incredible catches. So there was a fly ball deep in the gap in right center field. I mean, he shattered his wrist going after a ball, in 1995, and he was way out there in right center field, and it just, hit off his glove, and he didn't catch it. And I said, that's a catch that Junior puts away. And I was just commenting about, I thought he should have made the catch. And anyway, he said, hey, Rick, he said, you said on the air, I should have caught that ball last night. I said, yeah, I've seen you make that catch, 100 times, Junior. Right. And so we talked about 10 minutes, and then he goes, yeah, you're right, I should have caught that ball. I said, but
Speaking of that, though, when he came out, he came back to the Seattle. I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
A couple of me and some other pitchers were sitting there, and I was showing the highlight reels of him just robbing balls at center field. And he looks up at the ball. He goes, "Hey, fellas," he goes, I can't do that anymore, so don't expect that. I thought it was great. Like, it was hilarious, as if to say, look, I'm older. Like, I'm at the tail end here. It was so funny. And it was good because, like, it wasn't this thing like, it breaks ice anytime you have that, and especially coming. Obviously, I looked up to him as a kid. When you hear that, it's awesome. So
no, he was unbelievable. The catch he made at Yankee Stadium, robbing Jesse Barfield, what would have been his third home run, was unbelievable. Racing into Death Valley, putting his right foot on the wall, jumping over the fence, and making the catch and bringing it back. The smile on his face, he was the best I've ever seen.
Seeing him come back and being a part of the fabric here with the Mariners was huge. I remember he left, and I wasn't sure when he was going to come back, because he retires, and I get it. A lot of the players like Ken Griffey, they want to step away from the game. But watching him come back and being part of everything he's done Major League Baseball, but with the Mariners community, man, it's so good to have him back when they can get him back. That's for sure.
Yeah, T-Mobile Park is definitely the house that Junior built. Yeah, he had the great games in '95, and the great success, and Edgar Martinez, the double that Junior scored on, Joey Cora scored from third, Junior scored from first base. Without Ken Griffey Jr., we wouldn't be here. We just had the Major League Draft about a week or so ago. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget Roger Youngward, our director of scouting, and Dick Boulderson, our GM of the club. They wanted to draft, Junior, the 17-year-old high school kid out of Moeller High School in Cincinnati. The owner of the team at the time wanted us to sign Mike Harkey, a college pitcher out of Cal State Fullerton, for $100,000, and Junior, I think, wanted $160,000, back then. And they put their jobs on the line. And thank God we drafted Ken Griffey Jr. with the first pick in 1987.
I go where the fun is. Somewhere that shows me the good times and unforgettable moments I can share. Where you can score big, dine to your delight, and dance away the night. And me and my friends, we're here for it. Emerald Queen Casino, the entertainment capital of the Northwest.
Before I let you go, I do want to ask you, give me 3 predictions, if you can, for this second half of the Seattle Mariners. Give me 3 good things that you're hoping to see, and you're kind of looking into a crystal ball that you anticipate is going to happen here with this team.
Number one, Julio is going to be Julio. You know, this kid has so much talent. I got to remind myself he's only 23 years of age. He's a 2-time All-Star, 2-time Silver Slugger Award, American League Rookie of the Year 2 years ago. He's going to figure it out. He's going to get going. Julio's going to have a great second half of the season. That's number one. I think the rest of the guys offensively are going to pick it up as well. And then now you're going to see a 3-headed monster in the bullpen. You got an all-star in Andres Munoz. You have Ryan Stanek, who I think has been a godsend since the Mariners got him, prior to the season. And now Gregory Santos. So you got those 3 guys at the back of your bullpen. The Kansas City Royals, they went to back-to-back World Series in 2014 and 15. They won it in 15. They had Davis and Holland and Kelvin Herrera. But the offense is going to get going. Cal Raleigh is, I just love this kid from both sides of the plate. He's going to hit a bunch more home runs. But I think you're going to see a much better offensive ball club. Scott Service has done an amazing team managing this club. It's been a lot of ups and downs. Offensively, they're going to figure it out. I see this ball club doing much better offensively in the second half of the season. The pitching is amazing. The Rock leads. He's the lead dog. Luis Castillo. Then you have all that talent. You got the all-star Logan Gilbert. George Kirby, who was an all-star last year. You got the kids who were high draft picks in 21, Bryce Miller and Brian Wu. Emerson Hancock has been unbelievable the times he had to come up and help out. So I look for a great second half of the season. It's going to be fun, and the Mariners are going to get the fans back to the playoffs again this year.
Well, Rick, you have got me fired up for the second half. Let's go, mate. I've been sitting at home. I've been doing this baseball camp all week. Let's go. I cannot wait. So, Rick, thank you so much. First of all, this interview has been brought to you by San Juan Seltzer. It's actually my favorite drink too, Rick. I don't know what you're up to during your All-Star break, if you drank a seltzer or not. But, Rick, this has been amazing. Let's go for the second half, man. I appreciate it so much. Thank you, Rick.
Anything for you, Ryan. Take care, buddy. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Thanks, mate. All right, special thanks to Rick Rizzs. I'm telling you, he's got me fired up, ready for this game, ready for this second half. I'm so happy. I needed some Rick Rizzs energy, that is for sure. I love that guy. Special thanks to San Juan Seltzer, the official drink of the Top Step, for being a big part of the show. And they've got their hard lemonade dark cherry. This is a good drop, ladies and gentlemen. Get stuck into it on this nice warm weekend here in Seattle as you're watching some Houston Astros. Now, before we get to the game, we have to teach you how to speak Australian. So, how to speak Australian this week brought to you by the Kangaroo and Kiwi, the Aussie pub in Ballard. I love that place. The word, the how to speak Australian word is KIP, spelled K-I-P. What does KIP mean? I'm telling you right now, during the All-Star break, tell you what, mate, I needed a much-needed KIP while we're on break in between some Mariners baseball. So if you know the answer, go to at the Top Step TV over at Twitter or over at Instagram. Put hashtag TTS, mate. Give me your answer, and you have a chance to win some really cool stuff. We're going to be at the Kangaroo and Kiwi later on as the season winds down. And by the way, team, I forgot to mention, we are going to be at the Emerald Queen Casino again, July 26th. I'm going to have Casey Sadler, former Mariner, come and join me. We're going to dive into all your questions. You can come hang out with us too at the Sportsbook at Emerald Queen Casino. So make sure you come down, say hello. July 26th, that's a Friday afternoon, roughly around 3 or 4 p.m. We'll be recording. We'll be hanging out there. So come join us. Then you can go have a kip. Tell me what that means. All right, go Mariners. This is going to be a really fun second half. Let's go. Enjoy the weekend. Go get yourself a San Juan Seltzer. We'll see you right here next week on the Top Step.